Hello, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 150. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Will Silver. I didn't even realize, and I think I was here for 149. Did I not know this was 150 today?
We're at $1.50, if you can believe it. It's pretty exciting. I just realized I didn't double check my audio settings. Okay, whew. Looks like we're on the right mic. Yeah, okay. So not with us this evening for this momentous occasion is the lovely and talented Tasia Custodi, who is still on hiatus with special projects. Hopefully she'll be back soon. Someone we thought might be joining us tonight, but apparently is not here and was maybe going to have a special guest. Not here either. The also lovely and talented Gray Williams. So we'll see if he and his guest are able to join in at some point. Otherwise, it's just you and me, Will.
Just you and me.
We've done it before. We can do it again.
Together if we try.
If you want to find out about not just Will and me, but the entire Momentous crew, you can visit us at www.momentous.tv, where you can find links to our podcast episodes, YouTube videos, and all our socials, and those of our various team members. No follow-up today. However, there was a little bit of weird news this morning. Will, did you happen to notice that any of your favorite apps weren't working this morning? Because I didn't.
So I was in the gym and I was talking to somebody and they were trying to show me the results from their jiu-jitsu tournament and were trying to show me on Instagram and it didn't work. And we were like, what, is the Wi-Fi here not working? What's going on?
Yeah, apparently Facebook, Instagram, and Threads were all down, all out of service. But it was at 10 a.m. Eastern, which is 7 a.m. Pacific time, and they were only down for about 2 hours. So by the time I was checking any of these things, they were long back up because I tend to do the late shift a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those things where people are like, is it my phone? Is it my computer? Is it what?
Yeah.
But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Now, it's not clear whether WhatsApp was down as well. I think WhatsApp might be on its own infrastructure. Let's see here. Oh yeah, WhatsApp was down as well. So I guess they've integrated WhatsApp into their infrastructure for better, for worse. What's rich, however, with all of this is that where did Meta post that they were having issues? Well, on good old X, formerly known as Twitter. So Twitter's still good for something, apparently. You can let the rest of the world know when your own social platforms are down.
Yeah. Good time.
When these things go down, Will, like actually, let me start again. What do you miss most when things go down? Is there any particular platform or website or tool, banking, for example, or just the Instagram? I know you enjoy the Instagram. Which types of apps or services, websites do you miss the most when they're having temporary technical difficulties?
I think Instagram. I actually did a bit of a side story, but I was at a comedy show, Bill Burr. And he actually doesn't, I think you went to Bill Burr once, and he doesn't allow cell phones during the show. Right. So that was kind of an interesting experience. And actually, the thing that I missed the most, because it was also smartwatches that you weren't allowed to use, was time. I didn't know what freaking time it was. And we're like, well, he's supposed to go on like soon. What time? Like, I just could not figure out the time. So that was probably my biggest problem, is just like, I'm in a black box. Like, I'm just living life now. I don't know what time it is or what's happening or when it's supposed to happen.
It's like the olden days, and a lot of us aren't wearing dumb watches anymore. And if you're not expecting to have to turn over not only your cell phone, but your smartwatch as well, and even like your earbuds. So
Yeah.
this the first time this happened to me was seeing Dave Chappelle live a couple of years ago, and it's like, oh yeah, they have the little pouches. You got to put in your phone, any earbuds you've got, smartwatch. I'm like, what? Like I thought we won the war, but
Yeah.
I get it when it comes to comedy, because you don't want people there on their phones. I mean, you kind of, in a way, it'd be nice if they did it at concerts too, but no, because I actually like to get some photos and little clips at concerts. But for comedy, it kind of spoils the bit if people are recording parts of the routine and then posting it online, because A, it takes away the a little bit of the demand, and B, it's like jokes are never as funny the second time, and a lot of times they're recording specials as well, so you at least wait for the special when it comes out on Netflix or HBO or what have you. Furthermore, a lot of comedy, if it's taken out of context, it can be used to try to cancel people and all that kind of stuff as well. So the pouch thing is a little irksome. So what Will's referring to here, if anyone's never encountered this, more and more comedy shows nowadays, you have to put your electronic devices in a little pouch, and then they lock it, and you cannot get it open to get your stuff out. And the thing is, I was, for the second time this happened, I think it was for Bill Burr, I did manage to get my watch out again, because I was like, come on, this is stupid. Oh no, I didn't even indicate that I had my watch on. That's what it was. Because they'll ask, and like I would just kind of hit it up my sleeve, I think. But sometimes if you're crafty, you can like sneak some of the stuff out if you really needed it for one reason or another.
When I was there, they actually had a designated spot if you had to check your device for some reason. And you would go, it was almost like a smoking area. And you would go walk of shame over there, and I guess they would unlock your device, and you had to use it in this area, and they would lock it when you left.
Oh. Well, they say like sitting is the new smoking, but maybe it's like smartphone use at concerts and or comedy shows is the new smoking. Well, from a social pariah standpoint, it is wild when you go to music shows and like how many people you see holding their phones up to record stuff, often in portrait mode, like savages. So it's fine, short form video, I get it, but and then like I said, I like grabbing a couple of snaps and recording a little bit too, but I always like hold close to my chest and all that sort of stuff too. Anyhow, but I get your point, like to bring it back to the original topic, when we are disconnected from some of these things, it is quite strange, but at the same time, it does let you enjoy. Like you could sit back and enjoy the comedy show. Dave Chappelle, actually, somehow someone had their phone in, and they were near the front, and they were trying to record stuff, and he got booted out. Now I don't know if that was a plant, and they were just trying to like make an example of this person, but it felt kind of real. It's hard to say, but just like, be warned, people, we will get tossed. Facebook, Instagram. So all by way of saying that Facebook, Instagram, and Threads were all down on Tuesday morning for a couple hours, and life went on, believe it or not.
Yes.
Speaking of things moving on, we're at a new version of iOS. Well, can you believe it? iOS 17 point, not 1, not 2, not 3, 17.4.
Whoop, whoop.
And this is when, if a lot of people haven't bothered to update yet, this is when they might finally do it, because 17.4 is the one that's got the new emojis. So, emoji, I guess, is the proper plural of emoji. It's like deer and sheep and sheep. So a lot of this happens but once a year, and Apple waits midway through the cycle to drop the emoji in there, I guess, to encourage people to get up to speed. That way they're getting the latest security updates and other features. Apple has been a bit more, I guess, relaxed about dropping features throughout the various dot releases, as opposed to cramming everything in the major release in September with, say iOS 17. They'll be like, they give themselves a little bit of break. Some of the features will come in 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And then again, in this case, it's 0.4. I have a confession. I'm still on iOS 16. So I think I might finally, maybe when they hit 17.4.1, maybe I'll finally update and enjoy. So in addition to the new 118 new emoji, well, there's some additional features, improved iMessage security. This is a story we didn't talk about a couple of weeks ago, but they've got like quantum encryption, which they're using to secure the iMessage protocol now, to future-proof against any potential quantum computing powered attacks. on people's messages. The Apple Podcasts app, which I frankly haven't used in years, is now going to show transcripts for those who are interested in that. I've been using Overcast by independent developer and podcast host Marco Arment, which I highly recommend for anyone on the iOS platform. It's just a little bit more refined. Virtual card numbers coming to Apple Cash. Oh boy, another digital clock widget. There you go, Will. More stolen device protection options, new battery health readout for iPhone 15 models, new home button in the music and books apps. That's handy. Siri can send messages more than one language as opposed to just the one default. New Apple CarPlay and Maps experiences in certain vehicles, and lots of other stuff. So if you're interested in finding out what new features are in 17.4, we'll have a link in the show notes. You can read away to your heart's content. And Will, how are you pretty up to date when it comes to OS updates? Did you wait a little while? What's your MO?
I'm pretty up to date. Just for security reasons, I think I don't have this update yet, but I'll probably do it tonight. But yeah, I usually try to keep fairly up to date as much as my systems will allow me to.
And has it ever backfired on you, like from a computer or mobile device point of view, where you've been all keen to update and then it's broken stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know that particularly with my computer, I have to be careful about updates because music. I think we've had this conversation on the stream before, but just for the sake of people who don't check us out all the time, because of music software that I use, I have to be really careful about updating my OS on my MacBook. So it just breaks things, and I often get messages from various providers just like, do not update yet, we will tell you when to update. So so sometimes I have to wait a little bit. They're usually pretty good, but it's you don't want to be on the bleeding edge of things, especially betas and stuff like that. They don't encourage that. So
yeah, I remember back in the 90s following websites like Mac Central and Macintosh, and whenever there was a new macOS update, they would talk about potential issues people were having and whether to wait or not. And I guess I'm a little scarred for life from past things, and I'm never in a huge rush, but security updates are a good point. Now, thankfully, at least when it comes to the computer software updates, the operating system updates, there a lot of times now they're separating out security updates. So even if you don't want to update the full OS, you can just apply the security update, which I think is great for people who want the benefits of the enhanced security but don't necessarily want to break some software that hasn't been updated for the new OS yet.
Don't want to nerf all their music programs just for the sake of a few emoji.
Exactly. Well, speaking of emoji, we've got a couple of new yellow face, smiley face emojis. One shaking one head, nodding one's head. We got a phoenix, and finally, our long national nightmare is over. We finally get a lime emoji. Now it's a wedge of lime. This is something that's always annoyed me because we had a lemon, and I think we had orange, but we never had a lime, like Lime Justice. Especially, our company being Limestone Learning. I always wanted something to be able to throw in there. But no. Also, brown mushroom. So it's not just the toadstool anymore. So we've got diversity in mushrooms now. We've got a broken link or breaking the chain, sort of. So this could be like an emancipation type thing, or just like broken website link. And lots of this new gender neutral sort of icons representing different types of family configurations, and a lot of accessibility and mobility emoji as well. Of course, in all the various diverse skin and skin colors and skin tones and hair colors there. So that really makes up a lot of the 118. It's just the different variations of the themes. But we've got people with mobility scooters / wheelchairs and walking canes and things like that. But facing, I guess they're facing right in this case. And it looks like people are running. Maybe they've added new directions, because sometimes I think what it was is that previously all of these were facing the other direction and now facing left, and now they're facing right. I think, yeah. So there we go. And, oh, could it be? We've got broadcasting from the surface of not sure which planet, but it looks like it's Gray. He's still muted. Gray, do we have audio yet? Not yet. All right. The question is, will he be able to join us in time to give his hot take on the emoji? Hello.
You can be muted in multiple places, which is it's a metaphor for society, really.
All right. Well, as we were discussing earlier, but like Meta was muted all across Instagram threads, WhatsApp, and Facebook. But luckily, you are now unmuted, so we're happy to have you, Gray.
Did you guys have people reach out to you asking if it was just them? Were they being hacked?
No.
I got 6 of those calls this morning.
You know what? I did have a one call, but did not answer it because I was otherwise occupied in the land of Nod. And by the time I responded, the person replied, "Oh, it's all better now." So maybe it was about that, but they didn't specify. Did not specify. Any hot takes on the new emoji, Gray? Are you pretty excited about diversity in mushrooms now? It's not just toadstools anymore. We got brown mushrooms and more citrus.
I'm thrilled. The omission of the line, probably one of the biggest crimes.
I know, right?
In pictographic, hieroglyphic, made a picture of a thing to mean a thing.
Now,
we now live in the future.
We were going to have a special guest today. Is that guest able to join us or not?
Nope.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we go. In the same location? Are we going to have crosstalk here? Is this going to be an audio video nightmare, or how is it going to go? How's it going to go?
Yes, it absolutely is, which is why I'm muting my microphone after I speak.
Perfect. Okay, well, I will throw to Sean and give him an opportunity to introduce himself real quick, and before we move on to our next stories. Hello, Sean Wormsbecker, or Wormsy for short. How's it going?
Use my audio.
All right.
There. How's that?
Hello, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah, a little far away, but hi. How's it going?
Very well.
Excellent. Happy to have you. What I hear, we hear that you're huge on Instagram and you're an ER doctor as well. Anything else that we should know about you before we get through the rest of these fascinating stories?
Well, I mean, for today, it's less about the doctor side of it and more the maker side.
All right. Excellent. So maybe you'll have a project to share with us when we get to that part
I
of the...
actually brought a whole show and tell.
Wonderful. All right. We will
I'm
get
yielding my time on the floor for projects to Sean.
Okay.
And yeah, possibly in any other comments that I have. He's got a lot of cool stuff here.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll be talking projects at the bottom of the show. So let's continue through our main stories today. Apple announces new MacBook Airs, or MacBooks Air, as in Governors General, with M3 chips. Not a lot to see here, as far as I can tell. It's basically just the enhanced performance of the M3s. Basically, everything else looks the same. Not much. This was basically a press release. There was no no event or anything like that. We saw the M2 MacBook Air, the previous model, the 13-inch only, go down to $999 US. So it dropped at least $100 or more, a couple $100, and has displaced the M1 MacBook Air, which it had the old Wedge form factor shape. So that's now the entry-level option, the M2 MacBook Air, down at that $999 US price point. The M2 15-inch MacBook Air has been retired. That only arrived in July, so maybe that'll be a collector's item. So we've got now new 13-inch and 15-inch MacBooks Air. Before we get into my rant on this, any Gray, Sean, anyone, any thoughts on this kind of low-key announcement?
You kind of covered it with not a lot to see here because there's still only one 4K output, one external display.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing: is they in there, and this is like a little Apple marketing trickery. They say, "Oh, now supports 2 external displays with the lid closed." So if you're in clamshell mode, sure, you get your 2 external displays. So you're netting out at the same number of displays as the M2 and M1 MacBooks Air. but instead of your internal display and one external, now you can do two externals if you've got the internal closed. It's like, come on, guys. So if you want more or additional displays, you've got to use that trickery using Intel Display Link, and you need a special adapter and all that kind of jazz, which I've done. It's not quite as good. It's a little hacky, but it does fill the gap.
I think you'll find it's actually under jiggery pokery, not hackery.
Exactly. Now, if I may engage rant mode for a moment, still entry level model at 8 gigabytes. How many has it been? A decade that's we've had entry levels at 8 gigabytes now. I mean, I don't care. I upgrade anyway, and because I enjoy giving Apple money to support their margins. The max RAM 24 gigabytes is okay, fine. Max storage still topping out at 2 terabytes. Again, years and years of that. I would like to get a little more because I don't need the horsepower of a Pro for my portable computing needs. I just need a lot of storage and a lot of RAM, but I don't need fancy CPUs or GPUs or anything like that. So they're really trying to push me up to the Pro, but I don't want the extra weight. Anyhow, other rant, however, is bye-bye to the M1 MacBook Air and the Wedge. I don't know about you, but I really like the Wedge form factor, and more people are kind of they're kind of wistful for it nowadays. When you've got a laptop on your lap, the wrist comfort and the like. Now, is this just old man shouts at cloud, Will, or do you think there's something to be said for the old wedge shape and a little diversity in the form factors of the Mac laptop, notebook lineup? Is it me? Am I the problem?
Well, I have to tell you, I never had a wedgie. So
not even in high school.
Not even in high school. So I don't know the joy which is a Wedge MacBook Air. I think it's one of those things that you need to experience. Sounds like to me, it sounds like not a lot of there. But I mean, I think in all fairness, I've never used one, so I can't say.
Sean, you got anything to add here? I'm not since we've never really met and don't know much about your computing background and experience. Any? Are you a Mac user for one? And do you have favorite form factors of laptops, be they Mac or otherwise?
So for day-to-day stuff, I am a Mac guy. I still have an old PC that I run a very old version of SolidWorks off of that's completely cut off from the internet, so it can't call home.
Air-gapped, as they say.
No reason. You just like it to be isolated.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're just trying to prevent your nuclear reactors from being spun up by adversaries.
Something like that. Yeah.
That'd be the answer.
Okay.
But yeah, nothing that takes a lot of processing power.
Now, how about portability-wise? What are you rocking as a laptop?
MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro.
The smaller version.
Big boy. Now, what generation are you on?
Oh, geez. About 4 years old, whatever that makes it.
One of the M series, one of the Apple Silicon ones.
It's the one where they abandoned the glowing logo.
Oh, okay. So it could even be one of the Intel ones. That's another thing too. People love that glowing Apple logo.
Yeah.
They keep Apple giveth and Apple taketh away, right? Like, I guess maybe they figured it was done. They didn't want to oversaturate. I mean, look at the AirPods Max. There's no logos to be found on that device anywhere, glowing or otherwise.
The next are just going to be a glowing band.
Exactly, right across the front. All right. So anyway, I guess it's mostly just me. The Wedge was an iconic. It was the second. I guess the second version of the MacBook Air. A year after it came out, there was the original Manila envelope one, and then they went to the iconic Wedge, and that got us through the entire Intel era, and then into the M1s, and then they went away for the M2, but they still kept the M1 around as the entry level, and now with the M3, the M2 has taken the entry level spot, and no more Wedge altogether. I just want to pour one out because that was iconic design, very usable in my mind. But
iconic Wedge sounds like a really great pizza shop.
Yeah.
Right? Iconic Wedge.
Indeed. All right. Well, speaking of things that we are losing, Windows 11 is going to be losing official support for Android apps in 2025. I don't know about you, but I forgot this was even a thing.
Well, they yell it at you when you first set up, right? Like if you have it doesn't matter if you have an Android phone or not. They try to push the whole like sync your Android phone. It does Android apps.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't realize either is that you didn't even have access to the full Google Play Store. It was like a curated selection of Android apps. So it's like, what? It's kind of nerfed right from the beginning. This is just another example, like of, in my mind, of Microsoft needing their own mobile platform. Like they retired Windows, whatever was it, Windows Mobile, I guess it was called, after they had bought Nokia and had, you know, the cool Lumia phones, but they just, I guess they had to refocus. They pivoted to the cloud. They realized they were losing to Apple and Google, or Google/Android. But now it's like if you are a person that's not in the Apple ecosystem, you've got to straddle two ecosystems. If you're a PC user and then you might be more inclined to use Android, it's like, well, now you're in the Microsoft ecosystem and you're in the Google the ecosystem, and already it's a pain in the butt. There are some people who like then add Apple to the mix, so they got an iPad as well, and that's what kind of fresh hell is that? But like if you are a Google user, well, I mean, you can, I guess, have a Chromebook. I mean, Apple, Google is kind of like, they sort of get a little forgetful about Chromebook being a thing, and then they'll update it every once in a while, kind of half-heartedly. So, I mean, that's one of the real advantages to the Apple ecosystem in my mind. Apple's just like creating every device that we could ever want, and then people who are anti-Apple or just like the flexibility of Android or Windows, I mean, but that includes a lot of normies as well. They've got to do all this extra work. So, I mean, honestly, if I was Google, get a proper desktop OS. If I was Microsoft, get a proper mobile OS. Let's get some devices going again, guys. Like, what do you think, Sean?
I'm one of those people you're referring to who just sort of goes along and makes it work.
But your one Windows machine, you said, is air gapped, and that's for running a specialty app, SolidWorks, for doing design, 3D design work and stuff
That's
like
correct,
that. So.
Yeah, everything else I'm on an Apple.
And even when it comes to cell phone or smartphone.
That's correct.
Okay, so at least it's not too bad. Now, Gray, with your Windows PC used for gaming, do you try it all to integrate it into your life? Do you sync your iCloud contacts or any of the other jazz that you can kind of half-heartedly do in the with Apple onto Windows? Like,
I have probably engaged in the most, we'll go with iconic again, most iconic implementation of half-assed connectivity with my Windows PC. It is needs-based. It is haphazard. Some of my passwords are safe, some of my passwords are not. My documents folder could go just about anywhere. I need to get this screenshot from Destiny over into Photoshop, and how do I do that again? I use a lot of USB keys. That's about it.
Sneakernet, like the good old days.
I
think if you really want to lean into it, you should hook up an external floppy drive and do Sneakernet like we used to in the 80s. Actual floppy disks.
Close, but yeah.
Bust out an old tape drive.
Oh, nice.
The super drive for your pleasure.
All right.
Here's the thing. Since Windows 7, Microsoft has continually made the UI more of a mystery to someone who isn't there every day. If you're there every day, I'm sure it's fine for you. It's just like I imagine macOS is for people who are on Windows. The problem is, one of those groups is wrong. Objectively. I won't say which.
All right.
You know who you are.
In other operating system news, because we know that's what our moms and dads like most, bye Linux on the 486.
Bye.
The DX. With the Math processor or without the Math processor?
Well, if you Linus Torvalds intimated online recently that they were no longer going to be doing additional builds for Linux on 486. I guess given since like that architecture, like that pre-Pentium architecture, I don't even know how much RAM it can support. But back in those days, the early 90s, we were rocking like 4 megabytes. So maybe they figured it's more trouble than it's worth, and people who are using the vintage class chips are really at Pentium and newer for what embedded systems, industrial systems, and stuff like that. But it's all part of the larger story that we also learned. Gray, is this going to be finally the year of Linux on the desktop? Linux market share on the desktop has passed 4% for the first time. We're almost at Mac territory, desktop territory when Apple was at its very lowest.
I'm going to quote probably one of the great computer minds on this. Can you ask me that question again?
Is this the year of Linux on the desktop, Gray?
No.
All right.
Will Silver, ladies and gentlemen.
Will Silver. All right.
Yes. You got to lean in. No.
Part of this news as well is that apparently the macOS market share has declined a bit since last year as well, it was as high as 20%, believe it or not. Now we're hovering down around 15, 16%. So there's some discussion as to whether it might be talking about margin of error territory, if there were some other weird glitches in the data collection and whatnot. But even, seeing Apple even in the double digits for macOS is still wild. But yeah, Mac Linux on the desktop, this maybe we'll see if they hit 5% next year. And this can be attributed to, various Linux distros finally getting a little bit more user-friendly. Even though there's some nice GUIs, graphical user interfaces out there, they're getting more familiar. But the big thing that's been pushing it over the top is Chrome OS, which is technically Linux on the desktop. So not a user myself. Are we ready to get back into rant? Maybe this is the kind of thing that Gray might have some thoughts on. Smart TVs, we all love them. Gray, Will, you just bought a TV recently. Great new,
yeah, like a year ago, but
fancy new OLED TV.
Yeah.
Were your priorities in the picture quality department or in the smart TV features department?
More the quality, but we also did want some access to apps, but with as little interference and spyware as possible.
Well, it's a good thing then that you didn't buy a Roku TV, because as has become clear over the last few years, part of Roku's business model, selling not only its little set-top boxes but its TVs as well, very, very cheap, is they sell your data. Yeah, it's all part of the plan, the data acquisition, collection, and sales ultimately. But part of smart TVs is that when you've got them connected to the internet, sometimes they'll have little features that you don't necessarily want, interface changes, software updates. And in the case of Roku, they wanted users to consent. A new pop-up screen when people turned on their TV, basically saying, "Oh, our terms of service have changed. Click here." It's like, you had to agree. It's like, if you don't want to agree, you can't use your TV anymore. Is this the future we signed up for, Will?
No.
All right. I was hoping to get Gray's hot take on this too, but he has dropped off. Hopefully everything is doing okay on the... I know we've had some technical issues on and off for the last little while. Yeah, I mean, this is one little piece of advice that I have been giving people for years and years and years, ever since smart TVs were a thing. It's just shop for the best possible picture quality. If you don't have external speakers, okay, maybe look at the speaker quality as well. But I encourage people to, if they don't have a surround sound system, maybe look at a sound bar, because even the best built-in TV speakers are not going to be super great. They're often like 10 watts max. But when it comes to smart TV features, again, people who bought, the idea is like, you want to buy a nice TV, max out on the picture quality, and like make it last. You don't want to have to like replace it every couple of years like a smartphone. Like, come on. But the thing is, the software gets obsolete, doesn't get, it gets slower, just like a computer as they try to update it. Certain apps, don't get supported anymore, don't get updated. Newer apps aren't available if there's new streaming services come online. And then you're stuck with this like kind of this crappy interface. So I've always told people, spend your money on the image quality of the TV, and then get your smart features through an external box like an Apple TV or a Chromecast or a Fire TV stick or something like that. We got Gray. I see your picture again. We got you back.
Oh, no audio.
No audio. Gremlins, really don't want to get into it past that. The Ned Knight thing, not a joke. Not a joke at all. Just
don't let them near
talk
water.
about trauma.
Don't feed them after midnight. Gray, we're just talking about how some sort of lower end TV makers business models such as Roku that are able to offer TVs very cheap because they're doing data collection and selling that data to advertisers and the like. But this recent event that's gotten people up in arms is that when people were firing up their Roku TVs, they had to accept some new terms to their dispute resolution terms, and you could not watch TV until you agreed to the updated terms. I was just saying this as an example of another reason to not have rely on your TV for smarts and rely on an external box. Any thoughts on TV makers and business models and the taking hostage of our devices to terms and stuff like this? I mean, we're used to this on computers, but not to our TVs. They're usually just dumb screens.
I like this personally. I think it's a great idea.
Go on.
It's a good idea. Because when the revolution comes, Roku's first up against the wall. Like, it's what the actual flock. Okay, I buy this thing. Right? I go into a store and buy this thing. It's called Table. Right, Table. Table does what Table is supposed to do. And the manufacturer says, hey, you've been serving dinner on Table for a while, but we've actually been sued by a bunch of people because we made some bad tables. So before you can eat dinner on Table again, you're going to have to accept the fact that we can bully you out of filing law. Get bent!
Tell us how you really feel.
Roku is like, it's the unwanted relative at the Christmas party of TVs. Just tacked on and inserting itself into everything. I have no high opinion of the spyware that is equipped on many of these TVs, and Roku is a wonderful alternative for that. But that is still saying like you're drinking sewer water and hoping it's going to be okay.
Now, what are the terms of service on that sewer water? That's what I want to know.
If you get diphtheria, they're not at fault. Is that something you get from sewer water?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're factually accurate. Look, click wrap and bullying people into accepting terms that weakens their position as consumers. This should be considered a consumer hostile action. When companies take consumer hostile action, our governments should be stepping in to say to these companies, that's a lovely corporation you have there. Be ashamed if anything were to happen to it. You're a person, we're going to break your corporate knees. Stop. Like, it's like the B Corp thing is interesting, right? We have to act as a force for good as well as seeking profit. This is the opposite of that. You bought a thing from us. We're altering the deal. Pray we don't alter it any further. You can't watch TV. I want to be in the room with the group that said this was okay.
So I would say the bottom line if you want to avoid crap like this in the future and have the best possible smart TV experience, go and invest in an Apple TV, a Chromecast, a Fire TV stick, what have you. I'm biased toward the Apple TV myself, of course. And if you've got a smart TV, go and disconnect it from Wi-Fi, make it back to a dumb TV, unless there's a glitch and you need a software update, temporarily connect it, and then disconnect that crap again. And you can avoid business like this, hopefully, as long as they don't introduce it in any new software updates. But again, put your dollars towards the best possible picture quality and forget all the other nonsense, because then you'll avoid all this kind of crap.
The upside to actually keeping your TV connected to the internet for the TV manufacturer, in my case, TCL, to hoover up all of your viewing habits, is that you get a background theme change every once in a while.
Oh, how about that?
The Olympics were great. Pride Month was awesome. Halloween, they didn't quite get it. No skeletons. Very confusing. So
all I know is all the TVs in this house are 15 years old or older. So
you're one of the few people I know that still uses the word plasma to describe their best television, and I love it.
Well, and Sean's probably familiar with plasma in a much different context in his day job. All right. Let's get to rant mode off. Let's get to something a bit more pleasant, and I'm getting some. Let's call it some kind of Iron Giant vibes from this. There's a new trailer called The Wild Robot, starring Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, and Catherine O'Hara. And this is a DreamWorks animation studio. I'm not a huge DreamWorks fan in general. It's a historical grudge, but what have you. Bugs Life and Ants. So this looks absolutely delightful. I like robots. I like robots with all the feels. This is a robot gets stranded on an island in the wilderness and makes friends with animals. I'm getting like a little bit of Wall-E too, Wall-E and the cockroach. But imagine if it wasn't just a cockroach; it was a whole island full of critters. Will, I know that you enjoy some of the Disney animation type stuff. I don't know how you are in the DreamWorks business. Any thoughts from this trailer so far?
I mean, I like all sorts of animation. So this looks pretty cool to me. Very much Iron Giant vibes. Wall-E, all that fun stuff put together. I think my Twitter or my Instagram says I'm defender of robots. So I think that I have to like this one.
Sean, Gray, any thoughts on the adorable robot universe of cinematic universe there, and how this might be as an addition to the canon come September?
I mean, I enjoy anything where we're going into a whole new character, a whole new universe. I get a little tired of constantly adding to whether it be Star Trek, Star Wars, you name it. So
Marvel.
Something that's just it's got more
Law and Order
options for the imagination.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this Gray.
Yeah, I mean, Iron E, Wild Giant, great, looking good. It's going to avoid the big issue with DreamWorks films, which is that sort of face because he doesn't have a mouth. Smart move. Plot, obviously, robot dumped off on an island. Robot makes friends of animals. Subroutine protocol makes robot almost kill animals. Robot saves animals. Everyone goes home happy. Spoilers. It's still going to be great. It's still going to be fun. I'm going to have a good time watching it. Not in the theater, though. I will probably stream it because...
I think you're supposed to say spoilers first.
Ah! So close.
The fact that it's, I'm not sure if the actual producers or directors, or if it's just the studio. I quite enjoyed the How to Train Your Dragon series. There's 3 movies there. I mean, this often diminishing returns, but they were all quite adorable, I thought. So cautiously optimistic for the Wild Robot.
Things can slide quickly there. Land Before Time 1, good. Land Before Time 5, it's used as torture in certain countries.
Direct to VHS. All right. So let's get into our momentous picks this week, starting with Will. Will, what's your momentous pick? Oh, Will, we can't hear you. Oh no!
I had it on mute. I'm okay. So I have been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I am enjoying it. I'm not loving it. I am enjoying it. The question that does come up for me with a lot of these things is, why did we need this? I guess it's for new people because it is very much retreading over the story. And Hollywood seems to love these live action from animated movies recently. And it just ends up feeling like, you lose something with the animation, right? You lose some characterization, you lose, some of the magic sauce. And I do feel like there's bits of it that aren't as good. It's still very well done. I'm still enjoying it. So I hope they make season 2. It's unclear whether they are yet or not. But yeah, I do recommend it. But as someone who has seen it, the animated series from the 2000s, I would say seek that out. It's better. But I know, Tristan, you're not a huge fan of animated features, or don't watch it.
I don't mind it. I just don't seek it out so much anymore.
And I know a few people who don't like animated things. My friend Greg. So and I know maybe you don't hate it, but you don't watch them that often. I would say the better version is the animated version. There's more episodes in the animated version. Now these are an hour long as opposed to 20 minutes long, or 40. These are 40 some odd minutes as opposed to 20 some odd minutes. A couple of them are an hour long. But I would say the animated version is better, but I'm still enjoying this. So that's a long-winded description and review of something that apparently is my pick of the week, and my response is meh. So I am enjoying it, but it's not lighting my world on fire. But at the same time, it didn't destroy the source material. I don't feel like it's just desecrated it. But I would say that it's hard to recapture magic, and why bother is what I would say to Hollywood. So.
Well, the good news is there's still time to desecrate the memory of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender, Will, when you and I finally get around to watching the M. Night Shyamalan feature film of the same
Shamalama
title.
Ding Dong, yes.
There's still time. We're going to crack open that Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Great. You got to pick a momentous pick for us this week.
As we continue to crack on with the Doctor Who Watchathon, the 11th season. 11th season? Yeah, 10th and 11th seasons. I've gone cross-eyed. I can't remember. But Jodie Whittaker. It's my pick. The writing isn't great, but the actors just perform the hell out of it. There are moments that feel stilted and paint by numbers and just, not as good as they could have been. But I think these were the seasons that we needed to bridge us from the David Tennant years into what Doctor Who was going to become next. And they're foundational. Jodie did a good job. And if Graham had killed Tim Shaw, he wouldn't have done anything wrong.
What season are we talking here?
The first Jodie Whittaker, first and second.
We got a number.
I don't know.
We're talking post Matt Smith.
Yes. So Matt Smith is the 11th, but he had like 5 seasons. Capaldi had 3.
Gotcha. And then we've got a new Doctor yet again now. So basically, this is playing catch up to the current. Have you watched? Have you watched any of the stuff for the new Doctor? Have they started yet?
Yeah. So we've got through Jodie Whittaker's seasons. She regenerated into a very familiar face. I shall say no more.
Mm-hmm.
And that familiar face then had 3 holiday specials that were pretty cool. Which resolved in that being regenerating into the 15th Doctor. I think maybe I've said that with enough, because spoilers. I'm supposed to do that first. Anyway, they're good. Like, yeah.
So you're like in 10, 11, 12 territory at this point. It sounds like.
Yes, we just did 11 and moving on to 12.
Okay, perfect. Well, let us know when you've wrapped that up. But for those who,
next week.
So then you can go back to the very, very early for the episodes that they managed to salvage. The BPC didn't overwrite or throw out or anything like that. Maybe that's the next. Maybe if we have another pandemic, Ray, that could be your project.
They've taken the audio tapes from those video recordings and actually animated them.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I would rather eat raw flour than sit through all of that again. I've done it once. I've got some classic episodes, but going through one by one, it's torture in certain countries.
Some of those old black and white episodes, you got some of the aliens would be like, oh, it looks like they took a colander, put it on a guy's head, like glued some pasta shells on it, and then like spray painted them silver. I don't know.
They did.
Hey, that's a pastafarian. That's a life choice.
Exactly. All right. My momentous pick this week, which I watched on Apple TV Plus, but it is now also on other streaming services, is Killers of the Flower Moon is in theme because we talked about some things getting killed, like the M1 MacBook Air and Android apps on Windows 11, apparently. And of course, Linux on the 486. Here we're talking a different kind of killing, just like a little mini genocide, which is not the best thing. But this is a fantastic movie. Just brew some coffee. It's over 3 hours long. Amazing acting performances. We've got directed by Martin Scorsese, of course. Lily Gladstone up for Oscar nomination there. I think, and we talk, there's always talk about snubs every year with the Oscars. Honestly, Leonardo DiCaprio, one of his most interesting performances, a very duplicitous character, kind of just, you think he might be an okay guy, but maybe he's not so much. Anyway, it's beautifully shot, interesting kind of whodunit tale. You got the FBI in there to investigate these murders of the Osage people's territories. That's Killers of the Flower Moon on Apple TV Plus and elsewhere now. But Sean, you've got a momentous pick for us as well.
Yeah, it's if it's new to you, it's new, which is Preacher, which is on Amazon Prime. It was a pick for me because, first of all, I'm a huge Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg fan in terms of writing, and they're the guys behind it with their Point Grey pictures. To me, it's just a great example of watching something where it's a piece that's done for the person who made it rather than done for an audience. I love that sort. There was a quote that I listened to talking about how art is when an artist makes something for themselves versus it's making something as a product is commerce. And I felt like you could really see that. They didn't pull punches. They took some heat on, for at least part of the show, spoiler alert, humanizing Hitler. But it's
Hitler had a mom.
It's great satire. And yeah, it's one of those a series where they finished it at the right point in time. So
yeah, it looks like they only 2016 to 2019, so left on a high note. I remember seeing it promoted at the time, like because it was on AMC, so you would often get ads for it when watching, like, say, some of the various Walking Dead shows. How was Dominic Cooper's performance? I've seen him in some other shows. You see him in a lot of genre type stuff. Any thoughts on the performances?
I thought it was great, but I would say and I'm bad with remembering actors' names. The guy who plays the vampire probably was the strongest character in the whole show.
And that's a recurring character?
Ass Face. That's his name in the show.
Yeah.
All right.
But the way they shoot it is great. So it's based on a graphic novel, and they actually do a lot of shots that are a cross between trying to duplicate all of the frames of a comic book, but also kind of a nod to almost like art history with like a perfect triptych fight where you've got these three frames. It's like Wes Anderson if I don't know, he was hanging out with much darker people.
Wes Anderson on a bad weekend.
Very cool. Yeah, I've always kind of been vaguely interested in it, but I just haven't. This problem is like there's so much to watch. But and now did you feel like they wrapped it up in a way that made sense? It didn't feel like that there was going to be another season. Kind of did it feel like they knew it was coming to an end?
You can really tell, at least the way it watched for me, that they didn't plan to just make it open-ended. They had a plan for a story arc. And it's also one of those shows where you don't have to watch to the second or third season for it to get good. Yeah. Like, I was hooked after one episode.
Cool.
It's not for anyone who's easily offended.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like Tropic Thunder. If you don't understand satire, you're going to be very offended. If you understand satire, that you see that it actually supports more open-minded views and it doesn't punch down, which is important for me.
Gotcha. Given some, looks like there's a little bit of violence in here, and as some of the tone, would you recommend it for viewers who maybe appreciated shows like The Boys, for example?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So similar kind of irreverent and hyper-violent vibe.
Yeah, and also the hilarity of two Jewish kids from Vancouver writing a show about the Christian, American South. So,
gotcha.
I want to see the crossover where the boys go to church at Preacher's Parish. That's the episode we're missing.
All right, so that's it for our picks this week. Thank you, Sean. real quick on our, Will's not got a project for us, but Sean, you've got a project. Gray is yielding his time to you to share something that you've been working on.
Yeah. I will get the camera set up over here for me.
Why am I
and
so
then
big
the
here?
other mic so I don't get that feedback loop I'm getting right here.
Here, get up.
The question is, will we have audio?
Mm-hmm.
Use this and there we go.
Well, can you hear me now?
We can indeed.
All right. Well, Graham gets set up my second camera for the show and tell part of it.
What is it?
I'll sort of give you a little bit of a preamble, which is that this is less about sort of one project and more sort of the idea of projects. So to give you background, I've been interested in prop making, costume making, literally since I was in grade school. And my approach to things is a little different. A lot of people will say I'm into 3D printing. I'm not into any one tool. I'm into making objects that bring joy for me, whether it be strange small things, full costumes, or even some pieces I've made that required the rental of a pickup truck. And so I just try to pick whatever material, whatever tool will accomplish what I want. So I just brought basically a few different examples of things. So starting out, this is just some straightforward 3D printing I've done. So I'm currently working on a cosplay Tick costume, if you remember the comic book, and then eventually 2 different live series, the Tick. I'm actually going to be wearing it while I run the BMO half marathon this year.
Naturally.
And so this is an example of a from scratch design I did of a sort of articulated, segmented antenna. I incorporate a lot of magnets into my builds. It allows them to be modular, so I can either swap things out, replace them easily. And in this case, in terms of sort of post-print finishing, I just used an epoxy coat that basically allows me to skip all the sanding components of it.
Yeah, it's got a shine that you don't often see from 3D printed materials, so it looks quite pro. Oh, we can't hear you anymore.
Put on over here.
Oh, we can hear you again. Hi.
Okay. Yeah, it's like no one ever says, "Oh, I want to get into table sawing." They say I want to get into carpentry. Well, I sort of have a similar approach with regards to the projects I do. So in terms of another example of 3D printing, this is something that I've sort of dialed in terms of making, which is realistic eyeballs. Now this one is sort of realistic in the sense that most people's eyeballs don't have sort of a spiral design on it. But these I build from scratch. So I design a housing. I then 3D print the iris. I make a silicone mold, and then I can basically out of resin pour whatever color of iris I want. And then in this particular one, I've installed inside the 2-piece globe an LED ring, a little NeoPixel ring that just uses a little radio frequency controller so that I can change the color. I can change the mode where it'll do all kinds of fun stuff. And so these I've actually sold some larger size versions to another artist who has incorporated them into some big sculptures. Now, not everything I do is high tech, because this stuff, it takes a little bit of practice. A lot of the CAD programs out there now have built-in tutorials, which are great. But I like to also sort of set things up for friends that are more accessible. And one of the easy ways to do that is with the whole concept of either kit bashing or toy bashing. Now, to the uninitiated, basically that's where you take objects from other areas and put them together. The classic version of kit bashing would be basically all of the original models from the original Star Wars. So when you see the big spaceships going through space and you see all those little details on the surface, the technical term for that is greeblies. And it's basically where they find things that look like what they want them to look like. So most of the surface of the big sort of Empire ships are pieces from World War II model kits. And some of them are so sought after that it's almost impossible to find those original kits, but a lot of the digital programs for doing design actually have entire collections of these, but in a digital form. And so toy bashing is where you basically get old toys, in this case, a little plastic shark that I got from Value Village, and then I incorporate wires, little pieces of plastic. So this is a shark with a frickin' laser.
Sweet.
And in this case, I actually did put a laser inside of it. Basically, it's a little laser projector, and it plugs into a USB. And so just sort of little fun stuff. But I'll have friends over. I've got a whole box of these old toys. You pull them apart, you cut the head off one, put it on another one. You take bits and bobs of plastic out of your recycling bin, and you go to town. And I like stuff like this because there's no sort of wrong way to do it. Plus, a few coats of a silver spray paint makes things look way more professional and pop. Now, in terms of the sort of more analog stuff I do, I also use a lot of sculpting materials. So this is a piece that I did for Halloween last year.
Oh boy, nightmare fuel.
I have a life, and I have a life cast of myself that I do a lot of my modeling off of. So this actually fits my face perfectly. And this is done basically with different two-part sculptable epoxies. So one of them that I use is by a company called Smooth-On called Freeform Air. Imagine sort of like a putty that comes in two bins. You mix it 1-to-1, you mix it together, and then you've got a workable time of a couple of hours. And when it hardens, it's carvable and sandable. And so in this case, I wanted it to look as though it was built over a human skull. So I made sort of the bones of the skull out of tinfoil. You cover them with the epoxy. I got some fake teeth off of, it was either Temu or AliExpress. And then you go to town. And then other examples of using pre-existing things. A few years back, I did this one. I'll have to move the camera here. I did a Rick and Morty cosplay, which was Pickle Rick. And for the uninitiated, this is where a mad scientist turns himself into a pickle just to get out of therapy. But then, unfortunately, rolls off of his workbench and starts getting attacked by rats. He manages to overpower the rats and then attach their limbs to his body to seek vengeance, and kills many of these rats in the process. And so I wanted to accompany my costume a rat head that looked pretty close to canon. And this is actually something that is another example of looking for objects that already are halfway there. So I actually found what was originally meant to be a hat to look like a wolf's head. And it was close, but not quite. So it had little black eyes about here, a little cute button nose. So all I did is remove that, make the zombie style eyes. I undid the ear to make it bigger. So it was folded over to look all cute. Put a couple stitches in to pinch the jaw, added the buck teeth and the appropriate nose, and then just used some fabric and stuffing to make the little stump of a cartoonish spine. So,
that's the pièce de résistance is the spine stump.
Yeah, so this is the kind of stuff I like to do. For the tick costume I'm working on right now, it's my first foray into EVA foam. For the uninitiated, this is basically just a closed cell foam that's used in packaging, manufacturing, upholstering, but you can shape it with heat. You can carve it to any shape you want. And so most cosplay that you see at Comic-Con and the like is actually made out of this, even when you think you're looking at metal or wood. But yeah, like I said, it's less about saying, oh, I'm into 3D printing. It's like, no, I'm into making, and whatever tool is going to get me there, whether it's something a little more advanced like doing silicon casting, or 3D printing, or more rudimentary, just picking up a thread needle, it's whatever gets me there.
So to that point, if someone was interested in becoming more of a quote unquote maker, that's a term we've heard for the last 15 years or so. 3D printing has been part of that movement for sure, but we've seen the right to repair movement's even been kind of tied up in there, or people like repurposing things, upcycling, all these sorts of things, doing creating your own costumes, be it for cosplay or otherwise. What would you say to the uninitiated, to someone who might not have a lot of sort of natural talent or skills, what would be the first skills that you would recommend that they work on, as opposed to going out and getting a bunch of gear? Like so many of us nowadays, we're just like become gear hounds. Oh, I'll get this 3D printer and this soldering iron and this and that and the other thing, and I'll be ready to go. And then you sit there surrounded by junk and you don't use any of it because you don't know what to do with it. What would you say would be some good starting steps for someone who's interested in exploring their creative side in a way that doesn't break the bank, but can get them some positive reinforcement pretty early on, and then they would encourage them to explore further, and then maybe eventually, work on their skill set and more, and then get some gear to do those things? Where's a good starting spot?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would actually just say that there's no such thing, but very few people are naturally skilled. Like with all of this, none of the stuff that I do is particularly technically complicated. It's just putting in the hours to get used to it. I mean, when I started out, I was having to go to the library and pull books on making props for classic stage productions, things like this. I would again lean away from picking the modality. Instead, ask yourself, what do you want to make? What's going to bring you joy? And what are you going to do with it? What does it have to survive? And then from there, go to all of the resources that I didn't have. So Instructables is great for step-by-step. YouTube. Start following people on places like that. There are a bunch of makers that I love off of YouTube who basically do their entire builds in front of a screen. A lot of them, especially in the world of kit and toy bashing, specifically try to make it accessible where you're not having to use toxic or advanced materials. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be disappointed when your first attempt crashes and burns. I mean, my parents' basement is littered with projects that got halfway because I had a vision for the object I wanted to make and didn't have a concept of how the material would behave. So I'd get halfway through, get frustrated, and it would fail. But yeah, basically, if you say, okay, I want to go to Comic-Con and I don't know, I'm into a specific sort of character. Well, don't go big. Don't expect to be a Halo character from the get-go. Pick something small. Maybe pick one of the objects that they enjoy. Maybe modify that something that already exists. For example, one of the other projects I'm working on is a Rick and Morty portal gun, and I'm not building it from scratch. That's a lot of unnecessary effort. I actually found one that's made by a toy company. Cost me $20, and instead I'm weathering it, and that's a very accessible thing. Lots of resources where you can learn how to basically make something look aged and world weary by doing techniques like something called dry brushing, which is where you use paint, but you get it to a very dry point and you buff it with like a sponge or a piece of paper towel, and it can make something look rusted or dirty. You can scribe it, which basically means you take a sharp, pointy object and a ruler and you scratch lines in it to make it look like it has panels. And you can take something that looks initially like it belonged in Toys R Us and make it really pop. If you're into Nerf or you want to look like you are going to go into some sort of science fiction war, get a Nerf gun, get some masking tape and a couple cans of spray paint. And I mean, be mindful that you don't want to get too much buildup around moving parts. But beyond that, you can make something that initially looks like a toy look like a lot more fun. But with any firearm, of course, be mindful that you don't want it to look too much like a firearm outside of cosplay. There's a reason why toy guns come with an orange cap.
Exactly. You don't want to get taken down.
So, exactly. But yeah, just get out there, try stuff. I do actually occasionally even set up little play dates with my friends to get them into making. Another one that I like to do is for Halloween, I get a bunch of little plastic skulls from Amazon or the dollar store, and then I bring a bunch of acrylic paints. I bring a bunch of pieces of plastic and some random toys, and people will go in all kinds of directions. One person will make it look like it's made out of marble and attach or paint on little cracks to it. Another person will add some fake cobwebs, and the sky's the limit in terms of how you can make something pop. So it's sort of like a paint night, but just don't reach too far the first time, because if you try to go too far, you're just going to get frustrated. But it's not something that comes overnight to anybody.
You mentioned Instructables, and we'll include a link for that in the show notes. Would you mind giving like the quick elevator pitch for what that is for people who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's basically a website for teaching you how to do anything, and it's one that's entirely other people's uploaded processes. It's a nice website because you can make something look polished in terms of an instruction set without a lot of technical know-how. You basically create a series of static pages, you upload images, you type text below. And so, I mean, the quality of the Instructable is only as good as the material that's put into it, but because everything, of course, is upvoted based on other users, you're not going to see the bottom of the barrel less well curated sort of sets of instructions. Going back to the 3D printing, I think, again, aside from recognizing it as a tool, I really don't like the idea of people being so hyper-focused on your 3D printer producing a finished piece. Everyone wants to believe that they've got the Star Trek synthesizer, and we will get there to varying degrees, but we're not there now. And so the last thing we need is more people being like, I want to get a 3D printer, and printing a bunch of things that are just pieces of plastic that are a cool joke, and then you put it on your desk and you never use it again. So to anyone who's thinking about it, do what I did. I got my 3D printer my first one a long time ago. So I had an Ultimaker 2, which we're going back almost, I want to say more than 10 years, probably around 10 years. But before I committed to buying it, I said, no, I'm not going to even put it on order until I've taught myself the CAD. And this way, if I can't learn it or I don't like it, then I haven't, bought myself a large paperweight. Because I have lots of friends who have 3D printers that are paperweights. Plus, they're not plug and play yet. You're going to have to be okay with tinkering with something that's a bit mechanical. So yeah, don't leap until you love it. Let it stew on the back burner for a while.
Where can Sean? Where can people find out more about what you do? Do you have a website or an Instagram or something that we can direct people toward?
I do. I think I've got it on my tablet here. I'm primarily on Instagram. I'm too old to TikTok. I'm one of those people that watches the reels on Instagram. Cringe. Here's. Let's flip that around. At Sean Wormsy.
All right, we will include that in the show notes for those who want to find out more about your work. Some very, very cool stuff there. Now, before we let you go and we wrap up here, can you speak to the value of quote unquote MakerLabs? I know that's an actual brand, but just the idea of local community-based workshops where people can work on projects, especially if they don't have a lot of space where they live or they're looking for assistance. Are you plugged into that kind of community at all in Vancouver?
I'm plugged into members of that community. I haven't actually engaged in the space itself, just because with my personal schedule, the idea of having to then get in my car, drive half an hour, and then come home again is often not tenable. I'm often also tinkering at strange hours. But I think community is huge. It allows you to expand your capability of what you can do, because not everyone wants to buy a 3D printer. Most people definitely don't want to buy, let's say, a laser cutter or engraver. And you also just can't learn all the skills. So while I'm good in CAD, I'm good with more traditional forms of sculpting and making, I don't have the time and energy to learn how to code, to program Arduino. So if I want to add more functionality to something, I go to my friends and I say, hey, I want to make this do that. Which device will do it, and can you help me to program it and set it up? And then all I have to do is worry about making sure it fits inside my object. Now, I also believe that you got to respect people's time. So nothing is free. So for example, when I did I had the life cast done for my mask making, I still paid my friend full market rate to do it. I mean, for those who don't have the cash flow, bartering is a great way. Sweat equity. A lot of people that do big projects need extra sets of hands. So I'm also involved in the Burning Man community, and a lot of those pieces are massive and often take a team of sometimes 20 or more people to make it happen.
Very cool stuff. Well, we really, really appreciate you taking the time to show us some of your latest works. And again, if people are looking to find more about what you do, they can go to Instagram.com/Sean Wormsy, which we will have in the show notes. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We've lost Will, but we just got a couple of other momentous projects to share this week. The lovely and talented Tasia Custodi has another YouTube video, taking a couple week break from Google Topics, and this week talking about prompt engineering tips, how to prompt an LLM. I lied, maybe maybe there's a little bit of Google in there, Gemini and the like. But you can find out more about Tasia and her work at www.tasiacustodi.com and youtube.com/Tasia Custodi. And speaking of Tasia, she and I have another little podcast called AI Named This Show. And our latest episode, we looked at some new tools for building assets. People are using to build, do things like build levels, video game levels, the potential applications of building 2D and possibly someday even 3D game levels. And of course, people go straight to, we're almost at the holodeck. I might be overstating it a little bit, but some cool stuff there. And there's also we show and talk about a real-time image generation tool, which is very cool. It's kind of like DALL-E and Midjourney, except it makes the changes to in response to your prompts in real time. So if you want to find out what that is, you can visit us at AINamedThisShow.com. And if you want to learn more about us here at Momentous, visit us at www.momentous.tv, where you can find out our latest podcasts, YouTube videos, and links to our various socials and those of all our team members. So thanks to Will, who had to take off. We ran a little long. And thanks to Gray. Great to have you back in audio and video format, Gray. And special thanks to our special guest this week, Sean Wormsbecker. Much appreciated again, Sean. And we hope that your week and those of anyone else who might be watching or listening is truly momentous.